Welcome back, digital watch fans, to another video, and today we are going to do part 2 of the Casio F-100 restoration. Yes, in part 1 we've fixed the module, and for part 2 we've left the reconditioning of the case. So one important thing is that the Casio F-100 is Casio's first plastic or resin or whatever you want to call it, plastic material watch. So besides being the watch worn by Ripley in the Alien movie in 1979, it's also Casio's first plastic model. Okay, so what we have to do to this case is mainly three things, and that is do something about these buttons, because as time goes on, the gaskets around the buttons become stiff and the button travel becomes really slow, and it seizes up the button. So what people usually do is then take a sharp object and just press it on the button, and that's how you end up with these buttons. Other than the buttons, we have to do something about this badly scratched crystal, and we also have to do something about the case, because I don't know if it's obvious to you on camera, but it does have some discoloration, and it's lost its, let's say, fresh plastic look. So we also want to do something about that. Okay, so we'll start things off with stripping the case. Well, that's not much to do because I've already taken off the back. The buttons, you just have to push them in and they will fall right out. And the crystal is friction held in place, and it also has some of this, let's say, silicone around the edges. And this might look like a job that somebody did at home. It's actually the way it was assembled, because I have the same case on my other Casio F-100, and it's just a matter of pushing it in. If you have a tool that can do this, use the tool. I do have the tool, but in this case I know it will come right out with ease, and there it is. And as usual, it has this gasket or plastic frame. Okay, now we've got everything stripped, and let's start things off with the crystal. And it is glass, and what I would normally do is polish it with sandpaper. Start with a smaller grit like 300 or 400, and then go to 800 and then 1000, and then use cerium oxide slurry to finish it up. But in this case I was very lucky, because somebody is selling Casio F-100 crystals, new old stock, on eBay, and I will insert the auction here. Hopefully it's still available. But for 12 euros you can actually buy, and this is how they come wrapped, 1, 2 and 3. You can buy 3 new old stock Casio F-100 crystals. And let's open one up. And there we have it. Now, isn't that a mind-blowing difference? And for 12 euros for 3 of these, plus shipping, you don't even have to bother to polish it. And even if I put it on like here, like this, nothing gives a watch a better makeover than a new crystal. Okay, so that is that. That's the crystal out of the way. What we have to do next is do something about this case. And first of all, we are going to clean it really well. Never use isopropylic alcohol on plastics, because they will become brittle and they will disintegrate in your hands. So in short, what we are going to do is give it a good clean, and I'm going to use dish detergent for that. And afterwards, I'm going to use a plastic treatment technique that I know works. I know a lot of people say that it's good for the plastic, and that is treat it with, and I'm not even joking, olive oil. Yes, olive oil is supposed to do wonders for the plastic. Now, it's not going to fill in all of the imperfections, but yeah, it's going to give it a good boost cosmetically wise. Okay, and now we are going to rinse it in water. And you can already see that the colors, besides the buttons, they are already starting to look really good. But yeah, that's because of the cleaning and nothing else. And now we are going to fish them out. And we'll just leave them to the side to dry. So here we are with the case high and dry, and already looking a lot better because of that simple wash. Okay, now for the fun part. We are going to take this microfiber cloth, we are going to take the olive oil, and we are going to start rubbing it into the case. So there we are with the case and back soaking in olive oil. I am going to leave it for a day like this. And the point is, plastics, they usually have some oils in them that dry up over time. And one technique, if you look it up online, is to use an air gun, and that by heating it up, it's going to bring the oils out of the plastic towards the edges and give its color back. But when we are dealing with such a small amount of plastic, olive oil is the only way I could go. Okay, so here's a close-up of two buttons, and you can see that one is in okay condition and the top of the other one is just really bitten up with all sorts of sharp objects. And what we are going to do is we're going to attempt to fix that. And how are we going to do that? Well, with this lot. So what we are going to do is basically like a dentist. We are going to drill out a bit of the top of the button and then use epoxy to fill it up and then sand it down to its original shape. And because the epoxy is gray, we are going to do a bit of a paint job in the end. So the top of the button has 2.7 millimeters in diameter. So we are going to select drill bit 1.5, and the purpose of this would be just to make a bit of a hole so the epoxy has more mass and more area to stick to. There we go, we have the hole. I drill it as centered as possible, but being centered is not the important thing here. The important thing is that we have some area in which the epoxy will sit, and then we are going to spread it all over the top and then sand it off to a clean finish. Okay, and here they are. And as you can see, my second hole, which is this one, is a lot more centered than this one because I had to drill it looking through the viewfinder of the camera. So yeah, that's what you get for doing that. Now we are going to proceed to filling it in with some epoxy. So after the epoxy solidifies, this is how the buttons end up looking. And as you can see, they have a rough surface here that can be sanded down. And what we are going to do is try to sand it down back to its original shape. And if I were to do that by hand, there will be a lot of error and uneven surfaces. Trying to get them round would be almost impossible. So I needed a way to hold them in a chuck of a Dremel tool. And for that reason, I built this on the lathe. And you have here a short clip of how I do this. I know it's wood because I want it to be soft, and if I were to make it out of metal, it would have been too rough. So the idea is that this end would be held in the chuck of my Dremel tool, like this, and the other end would hold the button in place and sort of pinch it. So this is the end result after polishing it in the Dremel tool, and you can see that the end is flat and slightly curved to the edges. And now we have a softer top, which later on we're going to have to paint to make it look like the black one. So here we are at the more final stage, at the very final stage. And the point of this part is to paint the buttons the correct color, because the epoxy I used is gray, and what we are going to do is paint them black. But as you can see, I don't know if it's obvious on the camera, but the black that I have is a little darker than the case and what a button is supposed to look like. Okay, so we'll leave those two off to dry and hopefully they will look better, because right now I can see some irregularities. If those are too evident, I might try to polish them out, but let's leave them overnight to dry and see what's the result. Okay, so a bit of an update. After I painted over the buttons, I realized that paint wasn't glossy, so it dried up matte, which is a bit different from the rest of the watch, and it was really noticeable. I tried to fix it by giving it a polish and a coat of lacquer, but that increased the thickness of the overall paint and lacquer and didn't make for a good fit when I tried to put the button back through the hole. So as you can see, I resurfaced them, as in I took the paint off, and now what we are going to use is I bought some, so this is glossy black paint, and that's how we are going to fix the buttons. Okay, so now I'm going to protect the rest of the body of the button with some tin foil and have only the top exposed. Okay, so now we have both buttons prepared, and what we are going to do now is attempt to paint them, and we're going to sit them like so and essentially apply the coat of paint over the top. Yeah, so I forgot to turn on the camera for the important part. I give a few sprays, and that is the end result. And after drying up, this is how the buttons came out. And surface-wise, there has been a little bubbling, but it's not something that horrible or that visible, and I'm pretty happy. The downside is that they are a slight darker tone than the grayish of the watch. Well, just slightly. Not bad. Actually, they came out pretty good. And yeah, you can actually tell that the other buttons are a slight lighter type of black, but these ones, they just look on the watch pretty awesome, I have to say. And I guess that's well, now a certified way in which you can fix buttons for the Casio F-100. The thing that remains right now is to finalize the assembly, fit the screen, and look at this watch when it's completed. Let's do that right now and finish up with this overdue video. And there it is, the watch restored as much as I can possibly do it. But before you go, let's draw a few important conclusions. The glass and the case were easy to fix, and the more important subject here is the buttons. Now, using the model paint wasn't such a good idea because I found it to be softer, it dried slower. Maybe I don't have the proper tools, but I found the regular can paint to be a lot better. And one important thing to mention is that this button is the setting button, and you will always find these watches with marks around this and on that button because usually people press it the most. After you set the time, there aren't many things to do with these other buttons, so that one gets abused a lot, and that's why it's hit so much. And it's also shorter than the other ones. Bear in mind, if you open one of these, put the shorter back on the top left corner because that's where it belongs, so you can't actuate it that easily. And I'm curious of your opinion. Do you think those buttons are worth doing like this, or do you think they are worth letting as they were? In my opinion, I think they are worth fixing because they did come out better looking than they were before. So thanks for watching, and join me on the next episode when we will be doing the watch room tour for 2019. I am going to do the lab tour and also the watches, sort of a single episode where I show you everything that goes around my hobby. Thanks for watching, and I'll catch you on the next one. Bye!